And welcome back to Coaching with the Bible. This is episode 106, season 2, episode 52. Our portion of the week is known as Nitzavim. It's the fourth from the last in the 5 books of Moses, and it's also the weekend right before the New Year, the Jewish New Year, which begins on Sunday evening. So this is also what I would call the Rosh Hashanah, the New Year special. And our topic this week, upon further review. If I had to take a shot at determining whether or not this year was a good year or a bad year for me, so the litmus test that I sort of use of late is something that we use at work with respect to a project or something that we're working on. Is it on track or off track? The simple calculus. It takes everything into account. It doesn't allow for the expression of excuses or other things, just thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, what is it? Remember, there was a TV show when I was a kid, and there was an episode on it. I think it was like Silver Spoon. I don't remember. There was a child who had power, and the kid who had the ability to determine whether or not a toy would be a toy that would sell or a toy that would end up in the garbage heap of history. And they would do it based on a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so if you got a thumbs up on your product, you were in. And if you got a thumbs down, thumbs down. So if I had to think about the year, it's just blind test. Take a guess. Was it a thumbs up or a thumbs down year? My immediate gut reaction is that it was a thumbs up year for me. On track. As I think about it more, you start to unpack the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, we realize that even if at the moment, at the end, it's sort of an upward trajectory, and that's sort of how we like to think about it based on what happens at the end, we realize there's an ebb and flow. There are ups and downs. There are cracks, and then there's resurfacing. There are wins and there are losses. There are successes and there are failures. There are good days and bad days, good weeks, good months, and bad months in every given year. And how do I know this more acutely, even if I always like to believe that I pay good attention, is because I came across my goals list from last year. And that's how we get to upon further review. I knew that I had written the list and I had committed myself to sticking to my goals for the year. Remember last year at this time, I had issued out an annual, a personal annual review document, which I'm happy to reshare, and I will, with slight modifications for this year. And I had done the review from the prior year. I had done the goals set for this year. I had in my mind the idea of my goals. And now as I looked at the goal list from the prior year, there were like 20 things on the list in different verticals: professional, personal, physical health, spiritual health, that kind of stuff, personal development. And I looked, and I think I hit 4 of the 20. That is not a good number. 4 of the 20. And yet, even having only hit 4 of the 20, my reaction today, if I'm reviewing the year, was that it was an on-track, thumbs-up year. And those are not a contradiction. Because as you're going through it, you perhaps lose sight of the bigger picture. You might lose the forest for the trees on occasion. And when you look at where you are from where you were, if simply you're better than where you were, so then it's an up track, it's an on track kind of a situation. If some things have improved, if some things are better, if your circumstances or situations are in fact better than they were the prior year, then again, you're forced, whether you want to or not, you're forced to put a thumbs up on it. And so upon further review, even if sometime in late March or whatever it was, or February or January, you had a bad moment or a bad week or a bad month or a bad holiday or a bad phone call or whatever it was, at the end, if it's better, then it was a successful year. The baseline for success could possibly simply be If you got up this morning, then it was a good day. If you got anything done, then it was a good day. If you got two things done, it was a good day. And so the ability to sort of see success when we don't necessarily feel like there's success is really important. But let's go back to the goals for today. I spent the last couple of days in my mind, where I spend a lot of my time in my mind, thinking about the fact that I only hit on certain goals. And I wanted to understand why. Because I wanted to improve for the future. And so there were some key takeaways upon review that I've learned about myself over the course of time, but also really acutely over the last period. And this is something that, as we're in reflection mode, pre-high holiday, pre-New Year, sort of perhaps where our minds should be, what we should be thinking about. Not just the wins or the losses, not just like we talked about last week, the praise, the self-praise, the self-acknowledgement of the good that we've done, or the regret and the angst and the frustration and the disappointment and the sadness and the depression around the things that we've done wrong. Those are the whats. This is what I did right. This is what I did wrong. Now let's go step 2 on that for ourselves, which is, well, how did I do this right? How did I do this wrong? We talked a little bit about that last week when we were acknowledging the specific steps of the things that we did right and we did wrong. That's important because now you're able to sort of go inside and analyze a little bit. Okay, where did I step to the right or to the left? Where did I do it well? Where did I do it wrong? And then there's sort of the third level of that is the why of it, which is perhaps the hardest part, is why do I continue to get that wrong? We've talked about this as well. Why do I get that one right? Why is that easy for me and that's difficult for me? And how do I flip it or switch it or change it for the coming year? What's going to do that for me in the coming year to make me better with respect to my goals? Is it changing the goals? Is it reviewing the goals? Maybe it's looking at the goal set and realizing the goal set wasn't specific enough. Maybe it's looking at the goal set and realizing those aren't good goals. Those aren't goals that inspire me, that excite me, that motivate me. Maybe it's the systems that I have in place with respect to the goals that I have set for myself. So there's really no way for me to get there. So let's say again, we're talking about a goal. The goal here is now to run a 5K. Let's say it's an example. My goal, let's say, is in 6 months' time, I want to be able to run a 5K and I want to run it at a certain time frame. Amazing. That's a very specific goal. If I don't have the shoes to run it, if I don't have a space where I can actually go do that exercise, if I don't actually get up to go do it, like that's a nice goal, but my system perhaps isn't in place, right? That comes out a lot of what we talked about in Atomic Habits, in appreciating how the ebb and flow and the structure of the system, perhaps more than the motivation, the system itself, which gets us through, which gets us to the goal. And so for me, I looked at the goals, and I realized these were really good goals. Here was the flaw. One, it was in a file on my phone that was not in front of me on a regular basis. So I never really saw it on a regular basis. Two, I didn't share it with anybody, so it was only with me. And so when I have to hold myself accountable to everything, sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't come through on a lot of those things, and I fluff them off or I excuse it, and I don't hold myself to the highest level of accountability. Another one with respect to me personally, I know, is that with certain things, my discipline is weak with respect to certain areas of success or certain areas of goals. And so I need to figure out a better system of discipline and execution than the one that I put into place for the prior year. And perhaps the bigger one is simply just looking at some of those goals and realizing, well, why is that a goal? Like, how did that end up on the list? So here's an example. This one I actually hit, was reading a certain number of books in the year. That's a nice number. So the number was, I think, somewhere between, it was like 20 or 25 books. I don't know, is that a lot? Is that not a lot? Should I be reading more? Could I read less? What kinds of books? Like, I looked at the goal now in retrospect, I'm like, oh, great, I hit that one. Congratulations to me. That's one of the 4. But was that worth anything to begin with? Maybe it shouldn't be about the number of books that I read, but the number of ideas that I'm able to pull out of the books. Recently, I saw an interview with a gentleman who goes by the name of Naval Ravikant. That's how he's called. He's a very well-known investor. You might have heard about or read about the Almanac of Naval. Potentially, it's a very popular book. And it's based on a Twitter rant that he put out some time ago that obviously got a lot of action because he's a fairly well-known investor and very successful individual. And recently in the interview, he talked about the fact that he is reading anywhere between 50 and 70 books at the same time. Because the number of books is not a goal for him. It's the number of ideas. And so when I'm on review now, as I'm about to set up the goals for next year, I have all these questions that I'm asking myself about my own goal set. And upon further review, I'm reviewing the what, the how, and the why of the goals to get myself into a position to have an even better year in the coming year. Again, that could be professionally, that could be financially, that could be emotionally better year, that could be relationally, so having better relationships over the course of the year, deeper, stronger, however you determine that. Maybe that's physically, so I'm physically more healthy than I was maybe last year. That was one of the other goals for me that I actually hit on, is that I'm physically healthier now than I was a year ago at this time. But that had its ebb and flow significantly during the course of the year. And then perhaps as I'm thinking about it deeper and I go to the sort of the real edge and the part where I don't like to think about what works and what doesn't work for me, is I know well myself that if it's not sort of motivating to me, if it's not so much the most interesting thing for me to do, so then I get it done, but I sort of get it done, like I just sort of get it done, right? And it's not the best form of success. And so when I know that about me, I have to come up with a different way about those projects. So those things. So for example, let's say it's a work project. As you all know, I work with organizations to help them with fundraising. Maybe the organization isn't so interesting. Maybe what they do offends me. I don't know. Or maybe it's just not like an exciting project. And so how do I come to that? Leave out just the idea of being a professional, always showing up. That's one thing. But how do I come to that to get them to the success that they need? Self-motivation. Where's that coming? Where's the power from within that I need? And so it's setting up maybe unique goals for that project. There's a unique target that you're looking to hit with that audience. And so that power is within. It's always there. And that's really important to sort of appreciate how that operates, how that goes, where that comes from. And all of these things are really, as the quote goes from Stephen Covey, these are the product of my decisions. I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. And so as I think through all the different layers, top to bottom, and I'm trying to work and I'm trying to improve, and I'm trying to have a better day tomorrow than today, better week this week than last, a better month this month than last, a better year than last, I'm setting out that goal set. I'm looking at what worked and what didn't work this past year. Even if you didn't do a goal list for this year, it's okay. Just do the review. Try to analyze the big wins, the little wins, the big failures, the little failures, the big gratitude moments, the small gratitude moments. You'd be surprised the things that pop up when you actually sit down and think about it. And so this is where I want to bring in the holiday, because obviously when we're standing before God in the religious context and we have those moments, so it's an accountability moment. It's a reflective moment. We might feel to some level that we're ashamed or we're embarrassed by how we come to present ourselves before God in a moment like that. But even outside of the religious context, take it into your personal lives or your professional lives. how you show up to these moments with your team and your leaders and the people around you and your colleagues, or your family and your spouse and your children and your parents and your siblings. How does that work? Where are you in there? So we're a product of the decisions, not of the circumstances. And that for me was a very powerful statement from Covey. And really what I was thinking about with respect to the context of the weekly portion, which has the very famous quote from Moses. Moses is speaking about, in the 30th chapter, one of the more famous statements that Moses makes amongst the many in the Bible. In the 30th chapter, Moses makes the statement that it is not in heaven. It is not in heaven so that you have to ask, who will ascend into heaven to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it? Nor is it beyond the sea, so you may have to ask, who will cross the sea to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it? No, the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it. People focus in on the first part, let's focus in on the second part. The excuse always is that it's too hard, or that it's too far, or that it's too much. I can't get there. It's not for me to accomplish that. And what I realize about me for myself with a lot of things is that I have to get over myself to be able to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish and understand that it's not necessarily going to happen on my own, but I'm going to need help. And I'm going to need people. I'm going to need teammates. I'm going to need family. I'm going to need friends. I'm going to need coaches. I'm going to need mentors to help me get to where I believe or where I want to be in my life. So it's not circumstanced, because those are decisions I have to make. Willingness to step into those discomfort, those uncomfortable spaces to get to where I want to be. The power is within. The shortest distance between two lines, between 2 points. I'm going to get this right. The shortest distance between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. We just have to think about what gets us there faster. What's possible more quickly? Who can I borrow some confidence from? Who can help me with an introduction? Who can share some wisdom with me from their experience that's going to power me from within? That's going to get my heart and my mind and my being and my essence into the space where I need to be to make the decisions that I need to make to be able to be as successful as I want to be. It's hard when we allow ourselves to let our dissatisfaction with where we are rule the day. And we should rather want to not let that lead us, but rather have that sort of sit on the sidelines and not spend any time on it. Because there's so much power that is within us. That's for me the most powerful lesson of this. If I want to get these things accomplished, I'm going to need help. But before I get to the help, I have to figure out how to bring up the power that's within me. It's not over the sea. It's not over a bridge. It's not in heaven. It's within me. And the truth is, I know that the greatest distance between 2 points is actually the distance between my mind and my heart and my body. And the ability to move it from an idea and from a thought to a practice, to an action, to an accomplishment, to a success, to an achievement, to a celebratory moment, that's the hardest thing. That's the deepest thing. That's the biggest thing that needs to happen. Everything else is sort of commentary at that point. And so what the Bible is sharing with us here, what Moses is telling us, and he's speaking specifically to the people of Israel about the commandments, and perhaps the commandment specifically about repentance. But I think we can take the comment about it's not in heaven and apply it to everything else. It's not in heaven. It's within us. The power is within you. It always has been. How far are you willing to expand the horizons of your thinking and stir that power to awake? That is a quote from someone by the name of Louis Hay. And I really think that that's the point we're trying to make here. As we head into this new year, as we head into this space, as we head into this opportunity that's before us, as we have the opportunity, the moment to celebrate and appreciate and enjoy the fact that we are still here, that we still have time, that we still have opportunity, let's also then redouble our efforts to dig deeper into the power that's within us, to bring out more of what's great about us, to put that down and write down that goal set. We'll talk more about goals again in the coming weeks, and to put it into a manner and a plan that is actually executionable, that's actually actionable, that's actually something that you're excited and motivated to do and inspired to accomplish, if nothing for the fact that you can come back here next year, look back at it and say, thumbs up. This was my best year so far. That is Coaching with the Bible for this week. I wish you all a happy, a healthy, a holy, and a wonderful new year.